and when I was training and when I was competing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
that helps answer the question.
Do you think, Rosanna, that like our bodies, we sit for many hours a day. Most people, become so sedentary, but that, our bodies have got so much in them, so much potential and possibility in everyone, regardless of shape and size, provided they were in the right environment with the right experiences, that we're just not maximising anywhere near our potential that our bodies can do. And is that sort of why you're drawn to triathlon?
Yeah, no, I strongly believe in a holistic approach to life. I use that word very carefully, but really because we are an energy being, aren't we? We're in a human body, so we've got the body, we've got the mind, we've got the spirit. So for me, it's the combination, and we need to access and allow all of those three to be alive.
Yeah.
And we're a whole system. Like with everything in life, everything is in a cycle, everything's in a system. And so I strongly feel that movement is key to everybody, but to find the movement that suits you.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong. It's what works for your body. And it also might change. So for a period of time, you might be into yoga, or you might be into triathlon.
Yeah.
And then you might try something else. And I think it's that flexibility and that the possibility to try new things, to see, okay, let's try this now. This isn't working for me. This isn't suiting me at this point in my life with the lifestyle I'm living. Let's try something else, but not to give up on it.
Yeah.
To find something, because we are moving creatures, and energy gets stuck in our bodies if we don't move. So I really, really believe in movement being a key foundation for a healthy, holistic life, 100% for everybody. And the more we move, the younger we're going to feel, the more mentally stable we're going to feel, and yes, maxing our potential as human beings on this planet.
Yeah, it's a really good way to look at it, and that reference point that when you look at it from an energetic level, that we are energetic beings, and that we need an element of that movement, or else, that energy does get stuck. I think it's a really good way to reference potentially if we're feeling, if it's a mental health issue or whatever, that there's often that's that energy that's stuck, that we're feeling flat or whatever, because there's a lack of that energy coming through our bodies.
Yeah, and I think if we look at nature, I always explain to my children, I teach my children that nature is our greatest teacher. And if we look at nature, everything is moving. Yeah. Nothing is still.
No.
It's always in movement. And everything has a beginning and an end.
Yeah.
And if we can turn our perspective perhaps to more the cycles of life, as opposed to that we're just on this linear path where we're just going to get old and everything's going to start aching and everything gets more serious. All these conditions that we are brought up with in the Western world. I think if we could let that go and turn to the more holistic approach of looking at nature, then we'd be so much happier and so much freer. And we for sure would live longer and with greater joy.
Yeah. Yeah. And how have you managed, because the thing that blows me away with you is that you've been able to do that and live true to that, and have not sort of, it seems from afar that you haven't got stuck in that sort of hedonic sort of feeling of just going through the day, getting the job, living in, you've sort of moved to Bali, and you're living more of a coastal lifestyle, and you're homeschooling the kids. I'd love to know how you got to that stage. Like what were some of the decisions and some of the thought processes that made that possible?
So would I. I'd like to know that too. It's a good question. I think one of the questions I often say to myself is, what if?
Yeah.
What if I don't do it? And why not?
Yeah.
And the feeling again of that nothing is permanent, the sense of impermanence.
Yeah.
Again, we only have now. Okay, why are we putting things off until we're retired, or until we have that amount of money, or until the children are older? It's always pushing it forward. And I'm not able to live like that. I know that sounds maybe slightly radical, but I'm a real believer in living in the present.
Yeah, because
and I think the universe, I know this might sound also a bit out there, but the universe does support us. When our mindset is in a certain way and our heart is in the right place, then things start coming to us rather than going to grab it. This becomes a sense of flow. So once we've made the decision, things just sort of unfold when it's coming from a place of truth and purpose.
Yeah.
I'm not saying there's no fear. There's a huge amount of fear that goes into these decisions. And it's not that when you've made a decision, you think, yeah, it's all going to happen now. No, it's a lot of grit is needed to continue on that path. But then isn't that what's life about? It's not about it all being laid out on a plate for us. We have to just take step by step, listening to the signs, feeling into what we want, feeling into what serves us, and then kind of trusting that it'll all work out, because it always does. Even if it's not what we think it's going to be, it does work out. And, on all the travels and all the experiences I've lived through, it's not that it's all been perfect. It's been super hard. I've experienced loss of children. I've experienced disease in the family, not myself. Financial worries. The list goes on. We all have such lists.
Yeah.
But it's staying true to knowing that what feels right inside, like as in your heart is saying to you to do, is the path to take.
Yeah.
And not get too caught up in the oh God, what if? Or the security of things. Because I don't believe we're meant to be here just to have everything perfect.
Yeah.
But we're meant to live from a place of passion and an open mind. So we can make conscious choices about how we want to live.
Yeah, okay. But so I think I'm just referencing what you're saying, and it's striking me as so true. I and 100% believe in exactly what you said. It was sort of as you're saying it. I'm going through my decisions and feeling the ones that I've made from a head perspective, or they're the right decisions, but with the wrong energy. They're often the ones that, in my reference point, haven't worked out. But the ones that I've been able to touch the heart and the purpose and the real me are the ones that I bring the purest energy to, that actually, as you said, they work out. They might not be how you expect them to be in your mind at that particular time, but because of the quality of energy that you bring to it, and that's what sort of struck me when you were saying that, it works. And even the challenging times, the grit that you talk about is easier because it's coming from a real purposeful place, not a place of someone's telling me that this is how it should be done, so I'm just going to follow. If that makes sense? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It's because it's coming from the inside. It's coming from you, opposed to the outside. And that I honestly I feel has worked every single time. And even in times of real hardship, there's always been somebody or something that's come along. It's just lifted the energy, and okay, we're back on the path again. And as you quite rightly say, the path isn't always what you envisage, and it usually isn't. We planned to go sailing for 1 year. We went for 6 years.
Can you talk to a bit about that journey? Because that was one that I did want to talk about, that you actually sailed around the world, I gather, for 6 years.
Yes, we did 5 3/4 years.
Wow. So again, how does that
wasn't
come
planned. It came out of a place of we wanted to find a home, a physical home, that we were currently living in Sweden at that time, on a little island, actually. So we wanted more adventure, and we couldn't find that place. So we just said, okay, well, we both can sail-ish. My husband was very experienced, myself more coastal, so dinghy sailing. And we said, well, let's sell everything and go sailing and buy a boat, and we'll have a home, and we'll just go for a year and see where we kind of end up. And at the time we had my son, Teddy, who was about a year and a half. Yeah. And that's kind of what we did. And the process of that happening was super hard. I mean, you sell the house, everything that we bought and created, and just let it all go. And that was an amazing lesson that I learned, was to let go of all the attachments that I had to a place, to a building, to the stuff, all the external impermanent things, but become your nest. And I've done it many, many times, but this was probably the hardest time because, we were a family of 3 and we'd built the house, etc. And we were going into the unknown with no real, the vision we had was to find home. That was pretty much the vision we had. And that we would live off what we'd saved and what we'd sold and try to be clever with investing along the way and just sort of let life guide us as opposed to us trying to go and get everything, or controlling everything. And that's kind of how it unfolded. So we started in the Caribbean.
Yep.
And we just carried on sailing. We didn't find home. And we realized after a while that really we were probably trying to find the physical home, but it was more about finding our own home inside again. So we ended up pretty much running out of places to go to and have landed ourselves in Bali, which was pretty amazing.
Wow.
But again, didn't come without its real challenges and real fears along the way. And but I feel like it was probably the most monumental time of my life in terms of really tapping into the flow of life, like we talked about. So really surrendering to what comes your way, because when you're at sea, you really can't control much.
Yeah, exactly.
You control, what you eat and how well you sail the boat, your skills, your techniques. But the rest is really you're left to surrender to, what the universe delivers you. And then it's your response to what comes is the key.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of trust has to come out of that place. And the feeling of being in the now, because you don't know what will happen tomorrow. So you really have to be in the moment and live and love that moment, even if you're in a terrible storm.
Yeah. Or
your child is vomiting on the boat. Or suddenly you're pregnant again with another child.
Yeah.
So you were really forced to a place of presence and appreciation and gratitude. And I love being in that place because once again, you really see the magic in life when we get out of all the external conditions and all the external pressures. And we just say, we're here. And I feel that's a great gift for me in my life now. Because I'm, of course, back on land and back into community, and it's magical in its own way, but again has real challenges because we're back into a system of such.
Yeah. And
these values of presence, of gratitude, appreciation, really are pillars for me in my everyday life. So, yeah, I would say that's what a lot came from my sailing experience.
And that's just pretty, like, the learnings that you've just expressed there, are really held in such a deeper, almost like a Buddhist philosophy on presence and being with things as they are, which is really beautiful. If you don't mind me asking, what's that relationship look like for you when you're being with that moment of potentially being present and with what is, but also the decision making to know that, hang on, I do want to travel around the world, or I do want to run 5 marathons in 5 days, those big decisions, but still being okay with what is now. Like, what do those tensions look like for you?
I think it's a balance again of living in that future, like your dreams and your visions, and what you have now. So it's being really trying to find real satisfaction and joy in your everyday life, but knowing that we're always a movement, aren't we? We're a movement. Yeah. So things are coming our way, and we want to keep growing. So growth, the idea of growth, like I want to keep growing as a person, and I know that growth comes out of not only amazing, exciting events, let's say 5 marathons in 5 days, but it also comes out of hardship and pain. So it's allowing myself to see the yin and the yang of life. I think does that answer your question? It's allowing myself to surrendering to there is the yin and there is the yang, but we're constantly in movement, and to keep growing, we need to keep our minds open to our own to the possibilities that